Hello, beautiful YouTube community. My name is Emily. For anyone who's just joining or tuning in for the first time, big welcome. Here on this channel, we talk about spirituality and the arts and how spirituality and the arts are, I think, in many ways, part and parcel of the same expression that we get to give to humanity. Today, I want to take on the topic of spiritual awakenings and mental health and being grounded in our bodies, and how important it is through any spiritual awakening to have the experience of full-on oneness, like to literally, I think this is such a rare gift to get to have. So if you're having the experience of oneness, congratulations. I hope the people in your life are celebrating you and seeing in you the tremendous experience that you're having, and like, just being happy. Like, good for you. You're figuring out who you are. And also, if you are having the experience of oneness, realizing that you are in a relational web of who you are as a human. You have a job, you have people you see at your job, you have friends that you care for and take care of, you have family members, you have family that you're in relationship with, you have, all the things we have as humans, right? We have huge networks. We are, by our very definition, human beings are relational beings. We're like community beings, and our relationships are really unique. And each of us really does have a different task on the planet, a different mission, a different soul purpose, a different soul contract we signed. And some of us are here to work in the spiritual realms, the spiritual arts, and some of us are here to be very grounded and stable and help society progress forward. And truly, there is not one position or placement that is more elevated or below another. It's literally just unique to each and every person, our soul contract that we signed as part of our unique destiny of being a human being and incarnating into a body in 2025 or whenever you incarnated. So this is like a really large topic, and I'm just gonna kind of like freestyle channel whatever's coming through, but knowing that like I'll probably do many videos on this particular topic, and because I think it's something that we need to address as a society. Number one, our society at large is having like a mental health crisis, and many people who go through spiritual awakenings or are in the midst of spiritual awakenings, they do have mental health issues. That is actually just part of waking up, and you could go to any psychologist who has a spiritual underpinning and understands the spiritual realm and spiritual reality. And there's many beautiful teachers out there talking about this. So if you're having bad anxiety, or you're going through depression, or you've been diagnosed with bipolar, or you're having all the things that traditionally, like, anciently, traditionally, if someone, Snow Raven is a beautiful teacher too. She talks about how the people who would go through these spiritual awakenings would get shaman sickness. And, it was unclear whether the shaman would get out of the sickness or whether they would continue with the sickness. And if they were able to, fully ground themselves back in their individuality, then they would get to be the next spiritual leader of the tribe, or they would get to be the next shaman. And again, like remembering that the tribe takes all parts are needed. All hands are on deck. Like, humanity is going through a tremendous cycle of evolution that is both exciting and is very scary for some people. And so as leaders of a peaceful earth, And as people who either have gone through really big spiritual awakenings or will be going through really big spiritual awakenings or currently are going through really big spiritual awakenings, it's just important for us to really remember, what is the purpose of a spiritual awakening? Well, it's to realize our oneness with all of life. And so in my case, and I can only ever speak from my personal experience, and I think that when we are able to speak from our personal experiences and share our stories, that is how we can relate to each other. So I'll share my personal story, also acknowledging that what I went through was something that is very rare, and I do know, like, I have a handful of people that I have found through 5 years of searching who've had the experience of walking in. So it is happening to people, but also it's not happening to every person. But I do think people that it happens to can actually share a message about the greater spiritual reality, because it's an experience that is, something that if we were in a completely different paradigm as a society, maybe something that would actually be celebrated, or would be like, something that people going through walk-in experiences, like instead of your parents being afraid, your parents would like feel the gift of what that is per se. So I know it's a complex thing, and I know there's so much that happens during a spiritual awakening of any magnitude. But in the case of a walk-in, I think the magnitude of the spiritual awakening is greater than most, because it is a complete shift in consciousness. And that shift in consciousness, in my case, what it did for me for many, many months. And it's like you can have peak experiences through taking plant medicines or meditating and chanting Om, or doing breath work, or having a walk-in, or getting a Kundalini awakening, or all the different things. So it's like there are many paths to having an experience like this. But it is like it's not something that just like happens and you have it for one day. Like, okay, this is like the difference between like take a mushroom trip. Like you take a psychedelic, you get some visions, and like you go back to your everyday life, versus like you take a mushroom, you have a Kundalini awakening, you receive a walk-in, and your life literally is never the same. Like these are two different experiences of engaging in psychedelics. And there's a great poetess, shamaness woman, Maria Sabina. She was like the original medicine woman that passed actually the psilocybin mushroom to the North America continent. And she, has a great book of water that cleans as it goes, like these chants, like these shamanic chants that are interesting, because you can tell that the conquistadors and like the Christian energy is a part of the medicine that she weaves, but you can also really feel her like indigenous energy. And I think in many ways we've forgotten about the sacredness of like plant spirits and plant medicine ceremonies, and why Universal Divine Mother Creator has like given us these sacred medicines to come into spiritual awakenings, and also why we should literally, if we're going to take plant medicines, we should take them with professionals who have like 20, 30, 40 years of working with a medicine, especially if we're somebody who's already sensitive and has the aptitude to engage, I think, in arts, any of the arts. I think that this is just something that needs to be talked about. And if you are going to open your consciousness up to experience yourself as unified with all that is, then you really should be in a sacred container that can hold and support both the unraveling of paradigms and programs, and the reinstating of spiritual literacy that is necessary for people who undergo tremendous shifts in consciousness in relatively short periods of time. So it wasn't at all my intention to be talking about the use of plant medicines and who I think should do plant medicines and who shouldn't, but I guess if this is what's wanting to come through, let's just give it a little bit more time to speak about it, because yeah, I guess I would say from my perspective and my opinion, and again, I'm just like one perspective of source, but in my personal life, my actual lived experience, I took a tiny little bit of psilocybin, like a tiny little bit, like 0.17 micrograms, like a tiny bit. And I had an event that literally changed, in my perspective, in my lived experience, in my continuity of my life story, it changed my life. And I feel lucky. I feel very lucky for where I am today. I feel blessed and grateful for my mom and dad, who held so much powerful space for me to really go through a spiritual awakening. And instead of what happens to so many people, where they have to go and be institutionalized or be called crazy, or they end up in situations where they literally cannot tend to their basic needs, instead, my dad was an advocate for me and was like, no, I talked to her. She's having a spiritual awakening. I'm certain that she's going through something tremendous. He said to my mother, I think we should let her go through this. This is a rare occurrence. It doesn't happen to many people. She's an artist. Let's be here for her. And they literally let me go through a profound spiritual awakening and become one with everything that lasted for literally months. Okay, months of unity consciousness, where I felt freer than I'd ever felt free, where I felt happier than I'd ever felt happier, where I'd felt more joyous than I'd ever felt joyous, where I had connection. I could literally, at the heights of this, I could project myself into any perspective. It was like full-blown, just like unified field experience. And after having this experience for many, many months, you have to, by virtue of being like a highly functioning human being, you have to come back into your individualized ego personality. And when you do that, you are, I would say, forever changed. Like, you're just never going to be the same person that you were after having a prolonged, unmediated experience of experiencing unity consciousness and realizing the true nature of what you are, which is one marvelous, miraculous thing. Like that is, it's a life-altering event. And in my case, I was able to successfully go through this life-altering event, but only because of my mom and dad, and being able to receive the correct teachers and guides and mentors, and meeting the right friends, and getting to talk to other walk-ins, and getting to have the experiences that allowed me to really integrate back into my humanness. And then also, okay, it is painful. It is like one of the most painful things that I think any consciousness can go through, to expand into how beautiful, wondrous, joyous it is to feel unified with all things, and then to have to realize that that is not part of the world we live in currently. We can become teachers and way showers and leaders for a world where our unified consciousness, our equality of beings, the God force that exists in all people, we can become leaders for that once we've literally experienced it and integrated it into every atom of our beingness, and reclaimed our our peacefulness, our compassion, our joy, our wisdom, our love, our power, like, you know, in this world, in this realm where we live, powerful people who are disconnected from love, like our world leaders, this is false power. Real power is loving. It understands unity consciousness. Real power is like, I mean, power disconnected from love is literally not power at all. It's something that is very toxic, very patriarchal, and I don't say that against men. Like, some women are so patriarchal in the way that they be and behave in the world. So it's not like a gender thing. It's literally just like some people are steeped in patriarchy, and they have the patriarchy dominance on our planet after years and years and years has like put people into this sort of like separation consciousness that is so disconnected from the true realized reality of beingness, which is that we're all one thing, and what we want for ourselves, which is health and well-being, we want that for all people. That is a self-realized state of being in such divine essence energy that we want to literally, like a bodhisattva, alleviate suffering for all beings, all sentient beings. That means that as much as I want to alleviate my own suffering, I also want to alleviate any animal that is suffering, because an animal is sentient. As much as I want to alleviate my suffering, I want to alleviate any human being that is suffering. Because sentience is something, and our human sentience is under attack right now. Like, literally, we're living in a time, in a world, where there are people who perceive themselves to be in power, who have false power, who are under patriarchal idealizations of what it means to be powerful. Dictating, literally dictating, like a transhumanistic takeover of human sentience, what it means to be human. And like, humans are in their most divine, original source, living light essence. They are truly created in the image and likeness of that which is like divine creator ability. And it's my personal belief that like human beings do not need anything outside themselves. Like, literally everything is within. To have like a beautiful human body, to have a human heart, to have incredible DNA that is photosensitive and connected to the sun, to be able to ground yourself deep into the crystalline ley lines of the earth, to be in connection with your breath and your spirit and your soul, and to have your fingertips that literally have correspondence to the heavenly realms, the planets, to have a tongue that can speak incantations and holy languages and words. Like, at the pinnacle and heights of what we are as humans, we are just divine beings, and we bought in over centuries and millennia. It's nobody's fault, but we bought into thinking that we need something outside ourselves to like have our divine creative essence. And that is just an illusion, because really our consciousness, it's like we have consciousness. As human beings, we have higher ordered consciousness. Higher ordered consciousness is something that happens for human beings who have linguistic capacity, who can have linguistic abilities. It's like, I studied the neuroscience of this in my doctorate program, but it's who had the best name for it? William James. He had this concept of like the remembered present, where like you experience, but then you have the experience of experiencing it. So it's like this consciousness, this interaction with your reality and the people who are in your lived reality. This is such a gift. And like, because our world fundamentally has lost spiritual literacy in many cases, there's still a few lineages that like really have like true, what I would call true spiritual lineages. But what we're seeing is so many people who are waking up outside of lineages, outside of having any real guru or teacher. And like there is a place for a guru and a teacher to help you as you go through your spiritual awakening. And any real, like I'm talking real, not cultish gurus, but like any real guru at all times in the guru-student relationship knows that the student is just as much the teacher as the guru is the teacher to the student. Because consciousness, divine consciousness, is in both places. This is why partnership and human partnership, particularly partnership that involves spiritual marriage of beings, is such a, I mean, it's like sacred holy rites of humanness. Like there's no language for how beautiful that is. But in many ways, even our marriage institutions have also fallen under patriarchal rule. So they've become legalities instead of spiritual understandings. So if we want to, and this is of course just my perspective, but if we want to, as a society, retain our human sentience, when like a post-humanistic, transhumanistic agenda is trying to, in many cases, take away that which makes us human, we have to actually reinstate our spiritual sovereignty, our spiritual awareness, our understanding of unity consciousness, our literal daily words and actions of do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And when we see people struggling and going through these profound spiritual awakenings, rather than like, you know, casting these people away like the patriarchy has done for centuries, and every human being is programmed to do it. It's like literally the witch wound. I literally experienced the casting away of a witch wound, probably because I'd experienced that casting away in many lifetimes, and it was a samskara that I had to go through and understand why it happens, but how it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who casts you away when you're going through a genuine spiritual awakening. That's a gift for you. So if you're going through a challenging time, or you've just walked in, or you've just had a real Kundalini awakening, okay, not just like I smoked some DMT and I saw some visions and now I think I'm Jesus. Okay, not that. Like an actual, like the fundamental beingness of you is changing forevermore. Like that's what the Kundalini ignites in us, is this evolutionary shift from seeing ourselves as solo, singular, isolated, to like the most compassion for all sentient creatures, beings. And the beauty that we are as human beings, that are sacred houses, like literally temples, that house our spiritual essence. So if we properly understood the body as a sacred vessel, and we understood how we are intended to be like spiritually ordered among the, you could call it the angelic realms, you could call it just the 7 rays, you could call it the music of the spheres. I mean, there's so many different traditions, and there are different traditions that have real roots in what is actual truth. So there's different words for the same thing, but the deep understanding is that balance is required between unity and individuality to be a highly functioning human being. And like, as somebody who lived most of my life as a highly functioning human being without any sort of mental disturbance, I mean, literally, I had great relationships, great community, 3 degrees, like worked for really cool companies, started a business of my own, gave a TED talk, like a highly functioning human being in the world, to literally going into full on oneness of my mind. Okay, if, you know, like, there's different perspectives. Like, someone looking at me could look at me and say, like, she went crazy. And another person looking at me could be like, oh my God, she found out who she was. You know, there's like different perspectives. It's not my job to like have aversion or have clinging to anybody's perspective. The only thing that I really have to do as a human being who's gone through a spiritual awakening is be one with divine perspective. And I think that if you're going through a spiritual awakening, you should remember that. Because projection, people projecting fear onto you, is real. You're going to feel that. And that complicates the process. So for people who are in the life of people who are going through spiritual awakenings and who are literally blown open to oneness and are feeling everything, the quality of love and compassion that you can give to someone in that space, it does actually matter to them, because it can either make their path harder and more challenging, which is fine, because I really believe that like those who are going through that type and magnitude of an awakening like have the ability. But just so you know, as a parent, as a parent who has a child going through an awakening, or as a friend who has a friend going through an awakening, the quality of compassion and love that you offer and your actual actions, like your actions, they do matter to these experiences. And it's all one in the end, because we're all one thing. But you know, if you're a parent and you have a child and they've had a walk-in, instead of being terrified that your child's consciousness is now different than it once was, you could actually throw them a party, or you could celebrate their spiritual awakening. Like, there's a different way we could deal with this as a society that would reduce mental illness. Like, I think we could bring it to 0, because most of the people on this planet who are mentally ill are actually like highly spiritually gifted. But what happens is, as a community, we're like projecting fear and rejecting these people and casting them aside. And if they don't have proper support systems, they can't make it through that. It's like literally a crushing of like the essence of humanity in those moments. And so if we want to heal our earth, we need to understand that like we are all one thing. And the golden rule is like the law of cosmic Mother Nature, God, Goddess making love with mutual respect and trust. Women are like receiving body temples. They receive. Like, they are set up to receive. But in many ways, patriarchy has completely shut down like what a woman's real gifting to our society and planet is. We have lost the goddess on earth in many cases. She has been called demon woman, devil, all these things. And many men are so afraid of what divine feminine is as a receiving body temple for spirit that they've rejected their own inner feminine, or the females in their life, or they're stuck in toxic patriarchy, that they have lost the value and appreciation of what feminine receiver gives. And as males are projectors. And so there's a war between masculine and feminine. Like, literally, if I had a, like, if I literally had the Midas touch and I could like solve anything going on the planet, it would be to bring feminine and masculine energy back into like respect and balance of each other. But we are each doing that. That is like the journey of the hero of Skamos, journey of the inner union of like bringing your own sacred house, body temple, body mind temple into alignment with that which you are. And understanding that if a sentient being exists, they're meant to exist as they are. And every sentient being is meant to exist as they are. And each sentient being has a different purpose and a different function within the larger society at large. And so like the ancient societies knew, when someone gets, it's literally an opportunity, when someone gets the opportunity to go through a spiritual awakening, that is a gift. Not only for the person, but really for the tribe. That is a gift for the tribe. Okay, that feels like the end. I hope this has been deeply helpful for anyone going through a spiritual awakening, anyone who has anyone in their life going through a spiritual awakening, and anybody who has been blown apart into oneness and is trying to make their way back into how to be in a world that is highly, highly living from a place of separation consciousness, but still remain in unity consciousness despite it all, and to cultivate those gifts that are so needed at a time like now. Forgiveness for those who have hurt you, compassion for those who have hurt you, joy in your own heart for your own truth, regardless of anyone's perspectives or opinions outside yourself, and love equally, unequivocally, like true equanimity of heart, like love for all beings, all sentient beings, love for all of them. And when we can do that, that's when we're really spiritually awakening. That literal embodiment of that. Okay, there's a lot of like weird spiritual stuff going on. And it's because people are waking out outside of lineages. And there's a lot of like self-proclaimed spiritual gurus. And I'm not claiming to be a spiritual guru at all. I'm a human being. And like any human being, I live in a state of mystery. And that state of mystery is, part of me is in shadow at all times. Because as I grow my consciousness, there's more shadow. Human beings, as one human being, unless you're literally having a divine ecstatic state, it's not normal to live in unity consciousness. When you get the experience to live in unity consciousness, good for you. But like, that's not a normal state. And being in that state all the time, that's not normal either. So if you are in that state, know that you do have to come back into individuality so that you can actually be a successful, productive human being. And find resources. Find the resources you need. There's a really great book, Kundalini Vidya. Kundalini Vidya is the title of the book. There's a really good teacher, Igor Kufayev. And there's monasteries all over the world with like incredible monks that you can learn from. Okay, much love.